All right, welcome to day 22. We're still in Job, chapters 12 through 14. Let's get right into it. Chapter 12, in verse 10. For the life of every living thing is in his hand, and the breath of every human being. The ear tests the words it hears, just as the mouth distinguishes between foods. Wisdom belongs to the aged, and understanding to the old. But true wisdom and power are found in God. Counsel and understanding are his. So Job is replying to Zophar and his wonderful friends, and he's saying, hey, I know all of these things you're telling me. So in chapter 13, he starts out and he says all these things. He's trying to give some sort of a response to what they're saying, but then I think he's just had it at this point, and he's like, verse 2 of chapter 13, he goes, I know as much as you do. You are no better than I am. As for me, I would speak directly to the Almighty. I want to argue my case with God himself. Okay, so he's so upset. He is at the point where he's like, my friends don't have a clue what has happened to me. I understand what they're saying. I agree that sin should be held accountable, and sometimes bad things happen to good people, but God will give good things to those who are true to him. But he's like, this is different. I've not done anything wrong, and yet I've lost everything. So he's like, the only person I can really talk to who understands this is God. So let me plead my case. So he's really stepping out on a limb here saying this. You want to be careful when you want to say, I want to talk to God about this. So in verse 5 it says, if only you could be silent. That's the wisest thing you could do. He tells that to his friends. The wisest thing right now is for you guys to shut up and leave me alone. Verse 15, God might kill me, but I have no other hope. I am going to argue my case with him. So whether God's listening or not, which we know he is listening, whether he's listening or not, Job's like, I'm going to tell him what I think. I have nothing to lose. He even at this point he thinks that it'd be better to lose his life than to go on living the way he is. So why not talk to God? The problem is, this is just a mere moment in our time. Our lives are just a blip on eternity. So we got to be careful, and Job's got to realize this too. And it's hard when you're suffering. In verse 22, it says, now summon me, and I will answer, or let me speak to you, and you reply. So we don't get to God's response for a little bit yet. And then it says in verse 23, tell me what I've done wrong. Show me my rebellion and my sin. And then we get to chapter 14. You have decided the length of our lives. You know how many months we will live, and we are not given a minute longer or a minute less, is what he really should have said, because Job's thinking, man, get me out of here. I mean, if I have to live even longer, then take me right now. I'm done. And what that means is we have no say in how long we get to live, and God knows exactly what it is. In verse 11 and 12, as water evaporates from a lake and a river disappears in drought, people are laid to rest and do not rise again. Until the heavens are no more, they will not wake up, nor be roused from their sleep. Okay, so you got to understand something about Old Testament, New Testament. Old Testament, Christ hasn't come and bridged that chasm. Christ, when he dies, he goes to hell, and he takes people out of hell. Graves are open. People are walking around that were dead before. So in the Old Testament, don't know that? Get to the New Testament, you'll read that. You get the Old Testament here. Christ has not gone to hell and taken righteous people from hell, okay? And we don't know really what hell is like. There's probably different tiers of that area. And hell is a place, and the lake of fire is a place. Hell will eventually be thrown into the lake of fire. So now we're talking about this time period where they don't wake up. Well, that's right. They're not taken directly into heaven. And that's, another theological concept to be thinking of in the Old Testament. Well, why did Jesus go to hell if the people in hell are going to stay in hell? So he bridged the gap so that certain people that were in this place, Sheol is what it's called, He takes them out of that place. And in the New Testament, people's graves are opened and they are taken to heaven. And after his death, that's one of the things that happens during that time period. So here's a little bit of what Job is saying during their lifetime, what they're thinking. And then verse 14, can the dead live again? If so, this would give me hope through all my years of struggle, and I would eagerly await the release of death. So in our time, we have that hope. We have that hope of when we die, our loved ones have died, they will be brought back again someday. And that's how chapter 14 ends, and how we end our day 22. See you tomorrow.